Looks like everyone's ready. I was going to be polite and wait till 6, so those that are viewing online wouldn't miss anything, and my clock says 5:58. Anybody have a good 2-minute joke they'd like to share? Come on, Jim, I know you got a joke. You just may not get them done in 2 minutes. Welcome, Representative Sykes, our state representative. Tough session, I understand. We'll call this meeting to order. We will start with a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation from Jeff Matthews. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the opportunity to live in your beautiful Ozark Mountain region. Lord, we thank you for our nearly 300-plus employees who give their all every day for this city and this community to make it a better place to live, work, and play. Tonight, Lord, we pause for a moment and ask for your loving touch to be on our friends and neighbors in Uvalde, Texas, for the tragic event down there and the loss of life. Lord, we ask you to give your comfort and guidance to those people. Tonight, Lord, we also pray for our elected officials. We ask wisdom for the decisions that they have to make tonight, Lord. We thank you for being in this chamber with us, and as always, we wish your will upon this whole event. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chief. Madam Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
Fenton.
Here.
Denham. Here. Cooper.
Here.
Milton.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Howden.
Here.
LeBlanc.
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We're going to start off this meeting with the recognition for Dylan Pratt as recipient of the You've Been Caught Citizen Recognition Award for May 2022. Dylan here.
Yes, he is, Mr. Mayor.
Oops, he doesn't need to stand. Oh, thanks. Dylan, it is my privilege to announce that the City of Branson's You've Been Caught Citizen Recognition Award for May 2022 is going to you. It says Dylan Platt again. This award is to positively recognize Branson citizens and community members whose actions exemplify the City of Branson's values and who make our community a great place to live, work, and play. Dylan was nominated for his commitment to our community through volunteering, which is one of the City of Branson's core values. He is a shining example of someone who gives back to our community through his time and talent. Dylan is always the first to volunteer for any event at the historic Olin Theater, including acting in shows or serving as an usher. In addition to his work volunteering with the Arts Council, Dylan also serves our community through his work with Elevate Branson's Coffee Creations. There, Dylan and other adults with special needs learn the skills, which is a wonderful way to represent our community. On behalf of the Mayor, Board of Aldermen, City Administrator, and City staff, it is my honor to announce Dylan Pratt as the City of Branson's You've Been Caught Citizen Recognition Award. Congratulations.
Well, I want to thank the mayor for giving me this award, and I want to thank Jim Barber for asking them to give me this award. I mean, it's always been my dream for Branson to have year-round community theater, and I owe Jim everything in the world for making that dream come true for me. And I also want to thank Rayanne Zern for always offering me jobs at the coffee shop and helping me to succeed in life. So thank you to both of you.
Thank you, Jim Barber. This is the public comment section of our meeting. At this time, if there's anybody who has signed up, this is their time to share their thoughts with the board. And I'll ask our city clerk, have we had anybody signed up for discussion, for comments tonight?
Yes, Your Honor, we do. Our first speaker is Cherry Webster, 118 Country Bluff Drive.
Good evening. I'm here to speak to the ongoing saga of the missing buffer and basin at 3855 Fall Creek Road. Specifically to the two agenda items at the last hearing regarding the funding of the sewer extension to that parcel. Both measures were voted down. Much of the discussion centered around the 40-acre forest that was removed with a 10-acre permit and the effect of that action over the last 2 years. Alderman Cooper, you stated that it took big kahunas on Dan Ruta's part to apologize publicly for removing the trees on this parcel, which adjoins the Country Bluff neighborhood. I did not see any big kahunas on Ruta's part. I saw Ruta employing the fall on your sword routine. As a parent, surely you've seen that before. Don't ask mom or dad for permission. Just go ahead and do what you want, and then ask for forgiveness later. Some people have tackle boxes. Mr. Ruta has a tactic box. That was tactic number 1. I didn't hear him apologize for not putting in the sediment control basin his engineer designed 2.5 years ago. Did you hear him apologize for not converting that basin into the stormwater detention pond? I didn't hear him apologize for using 2 Country Bluff lots as his detention pond instead of using 2 acres on his own parcel. And even if he had, apologies do not detain stormwater runoff. If Ruta was really sorry, why wouldn't he put his money where his mouth is and construct the basin? That would take some big kahunas. Why has he not tried to repair the situation? Because he wasn't sorry for those actions. Ruta did state, quote, "I wish I wouldn't have torn down the trees down." I believe him. I would too if I had shafted my development partners the way he did. In trying to game the system, there has been a cost to his partners. He almost lost the $5 million HUD grant. He did lose the ability to ever apply for disaster recovery funds again because HUD now deemed that parcel tainted. He had to use another parcel otherwise designated for something else and ended up subdividing it and having to use the promontory 5 acres for low-income housing. Isn't the top of the hill where you put the posh product? Ruta stated he had to, quote, scrap $350,000 for additional architectural, engineering, and design plans because he had to move the project. Now he's lost the $85,000 sewer district grant, and to get sewer capacity for the full 50-plus acres, his team will need to add another $50,000 to $80,000 to upgrade the 6-inch line to an 8-inch line. All self-inflicted wounds. Tactic number 2, grasping at straws. The property is not in my name. I'm not the developer. And I'd appreciate it if the Fall Creek representatives would so address. The DED of the state and the HUD together, 2 bureaucratic agencies that really don't like each other. So that made it difficult. It's lawful to remove the trees. Well, who owns the property if it's not in his name? The Beacon GIS says Fountains on Fall Creek, LLC, care of Daniel C. Ruta, 245 South Wildwood Drive. That's Ruta's business address. The Missouri Secretary of State business names only provides the name of the registered agent, in this case, Kendall Combs. Does that mean Ruta isn't the landowner? No, it means the public has no privy to the parameters of an LLC. But at multiple hearings, Ruta himself has stated that the Rutas and the Combs own the parcel. Who is the developer if it's not Ruta? The engineer's cover letter to the DNR for the revised SWIP was CC'd to only one person at Fountains on Fall Creek LLC, Dan Ruta, president. In paragraph 4 of that cover letter, who was, quote, the landowner that instructed the contractor to clear the majority of the property without notifying the engineer, end quote. According to the contractor, it was Dan Ruta. Who signed the petition for voluntary annexation? Dan Ruta, managing member of Fountains on Fall Creek LLC. Who signed the zoning annexation plan of intent? Fountains on Fall Creek LLC by Dan Ruta, manager. Who keeps showing up at the hearings for the agenda items related to the parcel? Mr. Mayor, with whom are you negotiating the development agreement between the city and Fountains on Fall Creek? Is it not Dan Ruta? If Ruta's not the developer, he's certainly been the face, the voice, the document signer, and landowner one of four for the project. And it looks like he's been the shot caller and the decision maker for the last 2 years. Tactics and apologies and 200 feet of sewer line don't detain 4,000 cubic yards of stormwater runoff. Stormwater detention ponds do. Mr. Mayor, I call your proposed solution successful. I don't know when or how,
10
but I can
seconds.
see that detention pond in place. It's beautiful and fully functional. When do we get to address Mr. Ruta as the stormwater detention pond construction manager? Mr. Mayor, thank you for public comment time.
Cherry,
Yes, sir.
let me address a few if I could. I have met with Dan Ruta and Mark Ruta and Mike and Kendall Combs several times, as recently as since our last board meeting. And they clearly want to see this development move forward. What I heard from Dan at the last meeting was there's been a lot of water under the bridge, and has he done things wrong? Well, when I say wrong, when he removed the trees, it was legal. I know you're saying he had the 10 acres and he removed the 40. I don't know that Dan Ruta has done anything, quote, illegal. What I heard him say last Tuesday, or at the Tuesday meeting, was he was apologizing for some of the actions that he did take, and in hindsight, he wouldn't have done them again. I am one of the few, if only, board member that have been involved with this project from the beginning. And I've heard an awful lot of discussions and comments. What I was suggesting at the last meeting is to resolve this. I know there's a lot of history. I'm trying to move forward. In my opinion, to move forward, what's critically important to Country Bluff is getting the stormwater detention installed. And I've asked you a couple times in public, excuse me, if you would be in agreement for a 30-foot buffer. I know you're asking for 50. The plan was 25. I've been told that the city ordinance really only requires 15. But if it was a 30-foot buffer and the stormwater detention, is that what your ultimate goal was? And I believe you've said yes.
We've said buffer and basin has been the ultimate goal. I don't recall specifically saying that the 30 feet was acceptable. And the reason I say that is because when Mr. Ruta did his land disturbance, he was still in the county, and the county decision of record was 50 feet. Then when he came into the, and the city alderman at that time made sure they kept him in the county so that he wouldn't have to meet the stormwater detention criteria in the city. But he also circumvented the county stormwater detention by applying for a 10-acre permit instead the 40 or 50-acre permit. So it's kind of like he's trying to get the both worlds, you know, the county and the city, gaming the system. And so I don't know that I would definitely go for 30 feet because one of the other aspects we have addressed was that infamous zoning annexation plan of intent, We have had four hearings where I've spoken here about the possibility of rescinding that zoning because it violates state statute and city ordinance. And if that were the case, it would go back to the Planning Commission. And we had asked Joel Hornigal about the possibility of addressing the buffer at the Planning Commission. And
Okay.
whether or not we only got 15 feet or 30 feet, I don't know, but
Okay.
something we'd like to explore.
As the mayor, what I'm really trying to accomplish is, we are where we are today. I know there's hurt feelings on both sides. What I'm trying to do is get us from A, where we are today, to point B. And point B is to get that stormwater detention in so it stops flooding Country Bluff. To accomplish that, had Mr. Ruda been able to get his MHTD financing when he applied for it, when he started construction according to our city code, once he starts construction, he's required to put that stormwater in. He has yet to start construction. If we try any other path, the entire subdivision of Country Bluff is going to continue experiencing the stormwater runoff. My goal is to stop that stormwater runoff. So the proposal that I have and that I'm considering with the board is I would like to have Dan Ruda commit in writing to install that stormwater runoff. The city will agree to install that sewer line. The city will agree to provide water to the property. If the city agrees to the water and sewer, and Dan agrees to a time certain on the stormwater detention, that's what I see as a positive move forward. So my question to you is, do you agree with that?
Well, you just brought up some brand new things tonight. Since when has the city agreed to put in the water and the sewer? Because the last hearing, the extension to the sewer was voted down, and that was the county that was going to pay for it. Now you're saying that the city's going to offer to pay the water and the sewer?
If
And
we could
the
have a long
detention.
conversation, if those three things were done,
Do you not get it? Everything that Ruda has done from day one is to get a third-party source to pay so that he doesn't have to pay. And now he's gotten you to do water in addition to the sewer that was already voted down and the 30-foot buffer instead of the 50-foot buffer. You're giving him everything he has wanted since day one. Why are you doing that? Why did we have elections? Why did we put up, we figured out that it was going to take 4 aldermen to protect one neighborhood, and
Well,
last time we saw who the 4 aldermen were. Now you're trying to negate that.
Cherry, what I'm trying to do is get Country Bluff what it wants and needs. It wants and needs stormwater detention.
I see exactly what you're saying, and you have a good point. And it brings to mind a post that someone made during the campaign at the point in time when Jeff C. talked about, well, the new aldermen, are these just the new good old boys? It sounds like that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to give
Wow.
him the same thing that the old good old boys were asked of, that wanted to give him, and now you're giving it to him.
Cherry, I think you know better than to even suggest this board is part of the good old boys.
Well, I would certainly hope so, but with the offer that you just made, I'm stunned. I'm absolutely stunned that you're proposing everything that he's wanted from day one. And this is the first time that we're hearing about it. I mean, you're tying in the detention pond to everything he wants. At the last hearing, there was discussion about the trees, but Kendall Powell made no comment made no discussion about the sewer extension being linked to the detention pond. To me, it just came up in the discussion. Those are mutually
Dan
exclusive
Ruda
items.
does not need to put in that stormwater detention until he breaks ground on construction.
Well, he needed to put in
I know he
sediment
needed
control
to, but he
basin.
hasn't. I'm
Right.
talking about today.
Right.
Today, moving forward, there will be no stormwater detention built until he starts construction. Period.
Okay,
Period.
do you have the plans for the 200 houses he said he's going to build on the property? That's why he needs water and sewer. I can't build without water and sewer. Do you have the plans now for the 200 houses he said he was going to do? Do you have the plans for the 50-acre parcel? Do you have any plans for the 10 acres neighborhood commercial? Does he have does he
So-
have any construction funding for the parcel?
So you need all those things before you would agree to have Dan install a stormwater detention basin.
I said to you at the last hearing, he is rattling your cage.
Okay.
If he hasn't provided that information, he's just trying to make you think that he's going to put in 200 houses so that you will think you need to give him water and sewer. If he hasn't
Okay,
given
if
you
you
the
win- if you-
plans,
Cherry,
I'm telling you,
we
he
need-
doesn't do anything unless he gets something in return
Okay,
for it.
we're gonna have to move on because of the timing. I just want you to know that with no movement, if we don't do A through R, with no movement, Country Bluff homeowners are going to continue flooding until something happens.
I agree, and he's
Okay.
probably trying to
Okay,
pressure me
so
at that point,
that's
and my
just-
response is,
Yeah,
I'm still here,
okay.
and I'm still talking. If he wants me to shut up, he can put his money where his mouth is and put the basin in.
I'm asking to provide a vehicle for him to install the basin as soon as possible.
There's nothing to prevent him from putting the basin in now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, any other speakers?
Our next speaker is Martin Dingman, speaking on Branson Park's Secret Agent Program, 135 Tranquil Lane.
On a much lighter note, I'm tense. Okay. Thank you for all of you who are serving our community. I don't know all of you, but I sure thank you for your time and commitment to making our community a better place. Speaking about a secret agent program, I want to start for the Branson Parks and Rec. I initially attempted to get my time officially put on the agenda. But the reason it wasn't officially put on the agenda.
Excuse me, Martin, I need you to,
Right here.
yeah, I need you
Okay.
to speak. If you would lift it up, because
sorry.
unfortunately, this is a temporary system and we need to speak very closely. Thank you.
I'm not a performer, okay?
That's okay.
Anyway, I originally planned to try to get this on the official agenda because I think it's a very important program that I would like to explain to everyone. Unfortunately, I made Miss Cindy Shook nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. So I want to ask a personal favor of all of you who know Cindy. Shoot her an email after tonight and say, we're waiting for your 12-step presentation for the Branson Park and Rec program. That'll get her, she'll laugh and she'll know what I'm speaking about. But here's what I'm getting to. Does anyone here know what a chinkapin tree is? There's one, two, old timers. Does anyone know what a champion tree is? Wow. Does anyone know how many parks Branson Parks and Rec manages? Oh, no. Cindy, you're here. Oh, no. Okay. Anyone else? Did you know it's 16? Do you know that the Branson Parks and Rec actually has an inventory of the trees in the parks? They're all itemized. There's a number. We track them. How important are trees? Anyone? Who can tell me the best time to plant a tree? No. 10 years ago. 25 years ago. Who knows the second best, I mean, this is very scientific, okay? Who knows the second best time to plant a tree? Today, okay? The reason I'm sharing this with all of you is because we have the wonderful Cindy Shook back here, whom I've known for 30 years, who sent me to a soccer coaching clinic when soccer first came to Branson. And her wonderful staff, especially Miss Amy Jackson, who is her landscape specialist. Miss Amy started a program 3 years ago called Tree Keepers. And Tree Keepers is a program where volunteers go, and for a couple of hours a month, we assist Amy, who's a two-man team now. We plant trees, we trim trees, we trim, who knows what a Virginia creeper is? Anyone? All right, there's a couple of old timers, most of us don't know. Who knows the right way to plant a tree? I know, I used to know. Dig a hole, put it in, cover it up, and put some water on it. That's not it. Here's my point. For the last year, I have had the privilege of being on the Branson Tree Keepers program to help Cindy with our Branson parks. This young lady is a breath of fresh air. She loves her job. She has a degree in, I tease her, plant oncology. She knows everything about trees. She is so enthusiastic about her job. The trees that we plant and care for today are the ones that our children and their children will enjoy. 15 minutes ago, I planted 6, what are they? Pin oak trees. It was 15 minutes ago, and the caliper was about a 2-inch caliper tree. Today they're 60 feet tall, and the diameter of these things are this big. Our company wants to move, but I'm just holding on to these trees for dear life. They're so beautiful. So the reason I call this the Secret Agent Program
30 seconds.
is because I called to get on the agenda, and I spoke to the wonderful lady, I can't remember who it was, and I said to her, I want to speak about the Branson Tree Keepers Program. And she said, what is that? Who heard of the Branson Tree Keepers before today? Okay, 1. Cindy, you don't count. Ted? So I would like to challenge, ask, what can we do to promote this program? Because it is a wonderful investment in our community. There's no charge for the volunteers. And Branson is full of individuals like me who are either semi-retired or retired who would love to help make a difference in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not clear on what it is.
I have a little,
what it is.
yeah, I could provide a little context for that. Yeah, I was on planning and zoning. I would say, gosh, 2.5 years ago, something like that. The tree board was eliminated, and Amy Jackson, who was speaking now, she is an official arborist. That was moved from the tree board to the parks board. And so I think there's been a lot. We really work to try to maintain that we have a tree board. It's a really big deal. I think what Marty's bringing up is great. We can bring more attention to it, all that kind of stuff. So I think that would be great.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
That's all of our speakers.
Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. Are there any items from any member of the audience would like to see brought down for further discussion or questions? Hearing none, are there any members of the board that would like to bring a consent item down? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please read the consent agenda?
Your Honor, the items on the consent agenda are as follows. Approval of the Board of Aldermen minutes for the May 10th, 2022 regular meeting. Acknowledge receipt of Planning Commission study session regular meeting minutes for the April 5th, 2022 meeting. Final reading of Bill Number 6151, an ordinance approving the annexation of the property located at 2200 State Highway 376, Branson, Missouri. Final reading of Bill Number 6152, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with Arvest Bank for purchase card services and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 6153, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with Central Bank of Branson for banking services and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 6154, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with Connell Insurance Incorporated for brokerage services for property liability, workers' compensation, cyber liability, insurance coverages, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 6155, an ordinance amending the adopted 2022 budget for the City of Branson to adjust monies in the Parks Fund to transfer into the Parks Internal Service Fund to build up for future capital expenses. Your Honor, that concludes the reading the consent agenda. The floor is open for a motion approving all items on the consent agenda.
We're having a motion and a second. Any members of the audience wishing to speak on this? Any board members? Hearing none, let's vote.
Your Honor, that motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Your Honor, this is the final reading of Bill Number 6143, an ordinance approving the sublease agreement with Bar O.W. LLC for the operation of a commercial boat dock and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. This item was postponed on its final reading during the April 26, 2022 regular Board of Aldermen meeting. It has had a motion and second and is ready for additional discussion and a vote.
Are we looking for a motion and a second?
We have already had a motion and second on this.
That's what I thought, okay. So with the motion and a second, we'll get a staff report from Cindy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, as you might recall, I was before this board on April 12th to ask for approval of the sublease to Bar O.W. LLC for the operation of Scotty's Trout Dock as the dock is being sold. This item was postponed on its final reading during the April 26th regular Board of Aldermen meeting, and a request has been made to postpone it again to a date not to exceed July 26, 2022. So that is the staff recommendation at this time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody in the audience have any comments or questions regarding this? Any members of the board? Hearing none, let's vote.
Your Honor, I need that motion
Oh.
on the floor, please. Thank you.
Okay,
Make a motion to postpone?
yeah.
Okay. I move to postpone the final reading of Bill Number 6143 to a date not to exceed July 26, 2022.
We have a motion and a second on the postponement. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak? Anybody, any board member? I think I did that out of order. Hearing none, let's vote now. We're voting to postpone.
That motion carried 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is a recognition of the city's focus on employee safety by Missouri Employers Mutual Insurance Company with a $48,969.40 refund of workers' compensation insurance payments.
Mayor, members of the board, we've got the folks here from Connell Insurance here tonight. Cindy was a little short here. We've got the folks from Connell Insurance here to present a check to us. Can't really cash that, but it's symbolic in nature. But the emphasis is that the board has funded a safety position in the Human Resources Department. We've had a big focus on safety all across the board for a number of years, and now it's paying dividends. And so, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to come and accept this. Real check. We'll give you both.
There you go. I've never had a check that big. That's a big check.
That's a meme play.
Jen, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The board appreciates that, and it is a direct reflection of us hiring a risk manager, correct?
Absolutely.
I mean, this is a direct result of that.
Absolutely. And it's, the thing about it is, in my way of thinking, the number one payoff in this kind of effort is our employees go home safe at night. And that's a big deal, especially when you're talking about police officers, firefighters, and those folks.
Wow. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next item is a presentation by the ETC Institute pertaining to community and business surveys.
We'll begin with a staff report from Mike Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Another exciting presentation we're going to be presenting tonight. Michael Ashcroft from the ETC Institute will present the findings of the community mail survey conducted in 2021. The first mailing was 9/23 of 21. Second mailing was 11/9 of 21 to the residents, and a second business mailing was 11/24/21. Something I'd like to highlight that helped me understand the actual project is that there are two separate surveys that went out. So the business survey goes out and the resident survey goes out. 2,800 business surveys went out, 409 residents sent them back. 1,200 businesses went out, 201. And my suggestion, as somebody new to this city, is anybody that's listening, I know you roughly get 100 to 200 people that watch this, is to participate in these because it does provide valuable information to the board, the members of the board, and the people that work inside of the City Hall to help you guys out. So without further ado, I introduce to you Michael Ashcroft for your presentation.
Mr. Mayor, Board of Aldermen, good evening. My name's Michael Ashcraft. I'm a senior consultant with ETC Institute. I have had the pleasure of presenting before this board any number of times, I think 6 or 7 times over the years, and I always enjoy it because, quite honestly, I'm very impressed by the chamber. I love the architecture for what it's worth. I get to visit any numbers, and for a community this size, the dynamic of Branson, I think, is well represented by your chamber. So very quickly, the agenda is to talk about the purpose, methodology, and how to interpret the results of both of these surveys. Quite honestly, there is so much data that the survey generates that it would take us well over an hour to even scratch the surface. So I will give you some highlights, and I have shared this with staff in terms of how to interpret this data and use it to make better decisions. And then we can have whatever discussion that you would like to pursue. The purpose is to assess satisfaction of the delivery of major city services and to be able to measure trends over time. We have not done this survey every year, but we've done it consistently every 2.5 years. There have been some disruptions, of course, because of COVID, and if you recall, a few years ago, there was a significant storm that disrupted some services, so we had a delay there, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We, as Mr. Wood pointed out, we gather information from both residents and businesses, and we compare performance with other communities. And Branson, quite honestly, as I mentioned a moment ago, is rather unusual. If you look at a map, Branson's just a little bitty community. But if you look at the statistics, and you know it much better than I do, you have over 7 million visitors a year. So you have about 1,000 people visiting every resident every year. And if that's not unique, it's unusual. I've tried to think of another community your size that has to muster the support, the infrastructure, and the customer service for such a large dynamic population, and I just can't do it. Finally, what these surveys do is give you what we call defendable data. It's a cross-section of individuals randomly selected and asked to give their input anonymously, or I should say confidentially, because we know who we sent the surveys to, but we do not know who responds, and that gives them the freedom to give you full and fair feedback. The methodology, 5-page survey for the business community, mailed, and as Mr. Wood pointed out, about 400 residents responded. The confidence level and is 95% for both surveys, but the margin of error for the resident survey is 4.8%. And that's an important number, and I will mention that briefly when we get into a few of the results. Similarly, on the business survey, it's a 4-page survey with a 95% confidence level, and the error rate there is plus or minus 6.9%. Those two figures are important because it allows us to identify significant changes over time. We also provide benchmarking information for communities, and there is no community like Branson, quite honestly, but rather smaller communities, 30,000 or under, and then national averages. And I also will talk to you a little bit about what's called the 911 effect. These are trending anomalies, and we first noticed this after the terrorist attack in New York. When we did surveys nationally, we saw significant jumps in people's appreciation for governmental workers, first responders, and individuals who have responsibility for those common services that we oftentimes take for granted. And what we have found, though, is over time, it's not that people forget, but the perspective changes a little bit, and that has a tendency to see some leveling over time. So I will talk to you about your data here and point out some of these 911 effects. They're not good things or bad things, but as you interpret the data and as staff interprets the data, we will suggest that you have to keep that in mind, because while you did not have a 911 event, you had a similar event in, I believe it was 2017 and 2018 with the flooding, and that had a reflective response from your citizens and your business community. And then finally, I will also talk to you briefly about the GIS mapping. One of the things we do to help management and boards like yours is to identify areas of the community that may have higher or lower areas of concern on some programs. And it allows you to identify geographic areas that will enable you to use your resources more effectively. This is an example of a GIS map. These are not exact locations, but it's based upon census tracts, and it gives you a sense of, if you can see the little red dots up there, how it's distributed. And it's based not so much on the physical location, but it's actual the housing where people live. So interpreting and understanding the community results. Overall satisfaction of services. This is the list of the major categories that you currently have in your survey, and you've done most of these for the past 10 years, I believe, maybe 12 years. And what this does is it's, the dark blue shows responses of residents that are very satisfied. The lighter blue is satisfied, the gray is neutral, and then the red is less than satisfied or dissatisfied. And as you notice, police and fire services rank very high, as well as parks and recreation and customer service by employees. One of the things that I will have talked to your staff about historically and on this survey is, over time, you want to see how that tracks. The biggest area that you have an opportunity in is the neutral category. And if you notice, several of those areas, if you look at the bottom down there, the quality of building permits, code enforcement, traffic flow, those are fairly significant neutral areas. neutral in the sense that people haven't locked into they love it or they hate it. They can be convinced, they can be moved in terms of satisfaction. They understand circumstances, they understand opportunities, but they need to see results. We also track overall satisfaction over time. And this is an example of the first survey we did in 2008, as well as 2018, which was the last survey before the 2021, which is the dark blue. Management of stormwater runoff, as well as maintenance of city streets, continue to be a challenge for our community here. And that is reflected in the survey, not just since 2018, which if you see the two downward arrows, you would say, well, gosh, it has dropped significantly, stormwater runoff from 55% to 49% over that 2.5-year period. But remember, the 911 effect, that is probably an artificial elevation because you were combating, your first responders, your public works crews were responding, and they did well. It was a tough situation, but they did well, and the residents recognized that back in 2018. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, you can ask me questions on it later. Okay, the next thing we do is provide feedback for decision makers to give some sense of communities cannot do everything to the same degree at the same time. So we ask residents to give feedback in terms of what do they expect or what would they like to see within the next 2 years in terms of emphasis. And we give them 3 choices out of the 10 or 15 possible categories. And as you can see, individuals who either marked first, second, or third in terms of emphasis, street maintenance and traffic flow were the highest 2, and quality of police services was a close third. Now the broken line on this graph, and I have another one similar to that in a moment, gives you a sense that there are oftentimes, we see this in data, there's a high-end area that needs emphasis and a low end, and then that group in the middle. Traffic and traffic flow, street maintenance continues to be an issue for Branson. In terms of overall satisfaction of major services, if you look at this, I put the red arrows down, but if you look at that, you would say, well, gosh, it looks like there has been some significant droppage. But what we have found, especially during the COVID era, is that while your rankings are not as well as other communities under 30,000, during COVID, what we saw was those smaller communities grew much more quickly than you did. So it looks like you actually lost ground, but in a sense, you did not. You just did not grow as quickly. And I would contribute that, quite honestly, to the fact that you have 1,000 visitors for every resident in your community. And that's a hard comparison to make with any other community. Overall satisfaction with items that influence perception. Satisfaction with items that influence perception, feeling of safety in the community. If you notice, the gray areas are smaller here, but the red areas in terms of what the perceptions of individuals are does seem to be fairly significant in terms of the attitudes towards the management of growth, the attractiveness of the community, and the perception of the tax value. These areas, though, I will tell you, it is not unusual for communities to have similar feedback in terms of citizen perception. And while those are significant in your individual context, if you look at it in terms of other communities, you're really very much in line with them. Satisfaction of items that influence perception, feeling of safety and community. Now, we did not do that in 2008, but since 2018, a significant increase. Okay, You remember the percentage increase of 4.9% was greater than that, between 68% and 74%. So that's a significant increase. People are feeling safer in their neighborhoods. Also in the quality of life. Now, if you look at it in terms of 2018, you'd go, well, it looks like the area has had a significant jump, and it probably has because of the flooding that occurred and the feeling of safety overall, not just since 2018, but from 2008, significant jump in safety. So your residents respect the efforts that you've made in your public safety. Satisfaction with issues that influence the city. Now, I've got that little blue gold star up there to point out that this is probably an example, it appears to be an example of the 911 effect, that compared to other communities, it looks like it's less than some of the smaller communities and in line with the national average. But given the fact that, as someone once said, that Branson is the biggest little town they've ever been to, I think this represents, you're well in line with national trends, but those smaller rural communities, if you look at it just within that context, you might think, well, gosh, we're not keeping up. But as a big city, you are keeping up. Important satisfaction analysis. Now, this is a key indicator that we share with communities, because what we do is we measure the importance that residents and, in a moment, businesses give to various services you provide and their level of satisfaction. We present this information in two ways. First is numerically. We put together the ranking to see how well the services we provide in terms of importance and satisfactions align. And to better represent that, we put it in a 2x2 graphic. And I've superimposed a diagonal line from the lower left to the upper right to show if you had perfect alignment, all of your points would be close to or on that line. Well, if they are not, the most important thing to do is to look at those areas that are high in importance but low on satisfaction. And those are points that fall in the lower right-hand quadrant. And in that area, maintenance of city streets and management of traffic flow. And if you remember the graphic earlier, those were areas of concern that Branson has faced and has been challenged with over the years. What we do then is take the GIS mapping so that you and your staff can see, well, what areas, and I just take one here, but take the mapping, areas where people are generally satisfied, the light blue, and those areas of concern. And you know your community better than I do, but the egress and movement, particularly in the business sectors, the commercial industrial areas probably have the greatest reflection in terms of that disjunction between being satisfied and what's important. Next, we look at park and recreation, do the same thing in terms of priorities, what's important, and how satisfied they are. And when you look at it that way, if you look at the lower right-hand quadrant again, quality of city services, programs for seniors is an indicator. And when you map that out, it gives you a sense of where people are living and what their concerns are. Next, public works. And that falls again into conditions of the neighborhoods and street lighting and condition of major city streets. And we map that out so that you can see what areas of the community have the greatest interest and greatest need. Next, we do the same, a similar analysis for the business survey, although there is no GIS mapping for businesses. It's just for residents. Major city services, somewhat similar, I would say, to the residents, although when you look at the data, and I've had an opportunity to look at it a little bit, you will see generally that your business community, I think, has a more refined understanding of governmental services in some areas. But they think very highly of both police and fire services, and they rank customer service number 3. I think it was 5th or 6th in a resident survey. So your business community very much appreciates the efforts that your staff has been pursuing over the last couple of years. This is an example. I have that blue-framed orange star, or gold star, excuse me, that shows the 2018 results, and the business community, I think, really responded to the 911 effect and the efforts that your staff went through in 2018, but it's moderated somewhat. That doesn't mean you're doing bad or worse or have any particular problems, because if you compare it to 2018, there are significant improvements. For example, if you look down near the end, management of traffic flow in the city, while there is a drop, a little bit of a drop from 2018 compared to 2008, it's a significant improvement. So you are making progress. There still are challenges, but you are making progress over time. Quality of fire services, if you notice, police services, customer service, all up. Stormwater management, streets and infrastructure, still a challenge. Did the same breakout here give you a sense of those areas that are of high importance, emphasis over the next 2 years for your business community, infrastructure, police services, and traffic flow? Similar satisfaction analysis, maintenance of city streets and infrastructure clearly comes up on top for your business community, and you can see where it falls in the lower right-hand corner for that group. We asked them to give us feedback in terms of perceptions of the city, value you receive for tax fees, and how well the city manages growth are the 2 areas of concern that they fall in the lower right-hand corner. Again, areas that will need to have considered attention going forward. And that's it. That's quick. I apologize, but I'm happy to stand for questions.
Thank you. Does anybody in the audience have any questions or comments about this report? Holly? Nothing? Any members of the board? Marshall?
So when I was doing some of my door knocking, you would hear that about the city streets. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And I don't know that it's as much infrastructure like potholes. Is it just like getting the limbs cleaned up? We have a lady that lives down from where I used to be Clay's neighbor. Now I'm not anymore since I got married. But down there, she just wants it trimmed, So what I'm curious about is, do we have, as we're developing better mechanisms within our city for, reporting or filing business licenses online, could there be a way that we could have something like that where they could just quickly go in there, say, hey, could you guys get these trees trimmed, something like that? I think that could really boost satisfaction up greatly. And then I just want to say one other thing, to your point about filling out the surveys. There's been a lot of discussion in our community over the past few years about the Highway 76 revitalization project. And the number one thing that I kept hearing was that we need to get these power lines buried because that's what the citizens told us they want to do. So these can really guide our actions up here on the Board of Aldermen, I feel. So I would really encourage, just like you said, people to fill these out. So.
Any other aldermen?
I'm just curious, on the participation, the response rate you received, is that pretty normal? I think you said 2,800 sent out, around 400 received, so figuring about 15 to 20% there. Is that pretty normal response rate?
The answer to that is yes and no. most communities do a survey annually, and what we found is over time, cities that do it annually, the response rate is quicker and higher because it's something that the communities become used to. But for an intermittent survey, as we do here, you're within normal parameters. It does take a little bit longer sometimes, but nothing significant, nothing out of line. I mean, nothing significantly different than we see in other communities.
Well, I mean, it's very interesting information, you know, that you present, to look at it and be able to sort of extrapolate that out, kind of like Marshall was saying about, you know, what can we do and going forward with this. So, you know, I would encourage also, you know, anybody that received this and didn't take the time to respond, you know, use it, because it's interesting data, and I think it's worth continuing to discuss and look at and use to kind of guide where we go from here.
I've just scratched the surface on the data. You've got just a wealth of information. There's information about labor force development and management, access to services, and it's something that your staff will, well, I don't want to jinx them, but they'll have an opportunity to work through for many, many weeks and months ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments? Michael, I have a few comments. On the slides, or the questions 1 and 2, I'm not sure what to do with the rest of the questions. When I look at 1 and 2, and it talks about their satisfaction of our water and sewer rates.
I'm sorry, Mayor. This one, question 1? Yes, sir.
Okay. City of Branson's water and sewer rates, right in the middle. 21% very satisfied, 17% dissatisfied. I know from being on the board that the city subsidizes our population's water and sewer rates, and it was constantly put up on a slide that our rates are down here and everybody else's rates are higher. I would combat that with, but we're asking our citizens to pay the tourism tax and the retail tax. But with that, if we're just looking at water and sewer rates, I'm surprised that as low as our rates are, with 17% being dissatisfied, I don't know what to do with that. There was one issue that was brought up a few times about the maintenance and that of our streets. I know this isn't the time, but let me just say, when we had our engineering study done, the board was told that we need to replace a lot of our old water sewer lines before we go back and repave our streets. To replace water and sewer lines, we were given an estimated figure of $40 million, and then $30 million on top of that to go back and repave. So I can understand the frustration of, I mean, we have some city streets that look like quilts, right? They've just been patched and patched and patched. And that's frustrating. I think that's frustrating for everybody. This survey was did you want to address that, Mike?
I did. I talked to utilities director, and we wanted to emphasize that the survey is not only the cities, but is also the American water districts and so on and so forth. So it is all of them combined. It's not separated by that data set, which is something we could work on. So by the surveys that come back, it's representative of all the providers, not just the city. So Kendall asked if I would come up and let you know that.
Thank you very much. That's a great point, because this is a survey of residents of the city, and there's a number of our residents that are on Water District number 3.
That's correct.
Yeah,
So
I
Branson
wouldn't be
Hills area,
satisfied
so on
with
and so
those
forth, so,
rates.
yeah.
Sorry, Water District number 3. Did I say that? Can we edit these? Well, I wouldn't. Thank you, Mike. Very good point. So the big question is, what do we do with this information? This is the second time I've been on the board to receive a presentation, and I don't know, Lisa or Ted, or Chief Matthews, we've done these in the past, and I don't know, I don't like to just do reports or surveys just to do them if they're not going to be beneficial, right? Why pay for it if we're not getting anything from it? So I would probably, Lisa, I'd like to ask our directors to take this, Chief Matthews, I'll never stop you from speaking.
Mayor, I can tell you what we do in the police department. We
Thank
rally
you.
our team, our commanders all together. We look at this, and then we develop goals to try to raise those numbers up. We look at where the issues lay, and then we develop plans, strategies to address those in the neighborhoods or business areas or whatever it is that comes out. And as he mentioned, there's a lot of data behind the scenes that is not presented here that's very valuable.
Sure. Thank you very much, Chief. So Lisa, it sounds like maybe the directors in each department is already doing this, but I think it would be beneficial if the directors would take this information, digest it, what is it really saying to you, and what suggestions you have to improve these areas. And if you would maybe report back to Lisa and she'll distribute it to the board, I think that'd be beneficial because like I said, personally, last time I saw this, I was given the presentation and then it's just like we moved on until now we get to the next one. But any other comments or questions for Michael? Hearing none, Michael, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Your Honor, the next item is a resolution approving a preliminary subdivision plat for Stone Valley Estates Subdivision, Branson, Missouri. The floor is open for a motion adopting the resolution.
We have a motion and a second. We'll get a staff report from Mike.
There's the smile. This is an exciting one, right? 2016 is the last time you had a residential lot brought through. This is preliminary plat subdivision. Subdivision application was received from Greg Richards of LGR Design Drafting on behalf of Stone Valley Development LLC for a preliminary subdivision plat for Stone Valley Estates in Branson, Missouri. The property is located north of Lake Hills Drive, west of Hills Parkway, and south of the Branson Rexplex. A portion of the Stone Valley Estates property included in this request is zoned as the Branson Hill Development PD and is currently undeveloped and approximately 1.92 acres or less. So we're going to highlight back through again some of the new pictures and stuff like that. So the pictures that you're seeing there are the actual lots that are being developed. They did a significant amount of rock work in there and blowing those out. These are the overall maps. We need to do a better job of showing you where you're at. So downtown Branson, where we're at tonight, go out towards Home Depot, Walmart, Target area. That's how I identify things, by food areas and places to shop. Next picture will show you Branson Rexplex up to the north and the area of interest that's there. Again, we wanted to share with you some of the transparency and some of the things we do. These are the note cards that go out to any of the residents 185 feet close to the area in question. It also shows the date for the Board of Aldermen meeting and the hearing that we had at Planning and Zoning. This is a little bit of subsections that basically are there for our reference. They're preliminary plat review and all the processes that we have gone through on the Planning Commission and made sure that, you know, the roads and driveways and lots and things all meet the requirements that are stated by code. A little bit more. There's some open space dedication that's in this, so kind of an interesting thing to work through. So anytime that you do a residential lot, you're going to dedicate a little bit of open space to the Parks Committee. The gentlemen on this have 9 lots that this is for. You multiply that times 3 people, which equals 27 people. The 27 people times the 20 acres for every 1,000 people is 0.54 acres required. The developer decided to allow, the revision in our code is to allow half of it to be private, which they have allowed for there, and the other half to be donated. So mathematically, the park board's gonna get a nice check for $4,050 to do something for the community as far as parks. Here's the aerial with utilities that are on there. You're not, again, not showing water because it's not our water. Current zoning is a PD, which is in blue. The future zoning is also blue. Existing land use, it's undeveloped or vacant areas. This is the actual plat. So this is what you're approving tonight as a preliminary. So normally a preliminary, just to give a little bit of background for people that don't understand the process or are unfamiliar with the process, is you take a piece of land and you subdivide it in different ways that you want to. The preliminary plat says I'm going to put in storm sewers, water, drainage, streets, sidewalks, so on and so forth, and then it comes back for a final plat. This is an interesting one because the project had stopped, so now this project is back and the streets were already in, and they're working on some sewers right now. We pulled up the PD from there to look at setbacks to make sure they're currently the same as code, which they do match code pretty well. There was no ask for any of those changes there, but we have them there. The parcel 3 is multifamily uses. 5,000 square feet per lot. All those basically hit that, well beyond that. I think we were at 6,000 for one of them, the smallest one. When we did have the meeting, we had a little bit of a problem with the ordinance in the PD 2005-2007. After a little bit more discovery, we found that there's amended map that's there. So the amended map, luckily we have a GIS department in-house. We did the overlay, which is kind of a cool feature on top of GIS. So then we outlined that. So after you did the 2 different maps, so if you go back to the top, that map didn't show the right mappage. You go to the bottom, and there it's showing that parcel 3 is multifamily, and it is correct. The preliminary subdivision plat, these are views from the north, the south, east, and west. And this does the 2030 preferred land use for some medium density. It provides additional housing options for people in the area. Staff recommends approval. Happy to answer questions. I'd also like to note that Carl Finkenbinder is here for any questions on behalf of the developer.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions, comments from anybody in the audience? Any questions, comments from the board?
Mayor,
Yes.
would you mind backing that up to the slide that had the recplex in the north of it? I'm not real clear where this is sitting again. Yeah.
So Rexplex is right up there. It's right on the bend. Small area subdivision has started. There's some pieces that are there. Your Target and Walmart area would be here and here down the road.
Oh, okay. Now I'm with you. All these right here. Is that okay? Right here. Yeah. It's just right around. Oh, okay. Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, let's vote.
Your Honor, that motion carried 6-0.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next item is a resolution awarding a 2022 neighborhood grant to Lucia Ridge Neighborhood Organization for the Taney Hills Library landscape improvements. The floor is open for a motion adopting this resolution.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll get a staff report from Jan Fisher.
This was one of these, we got the single application for, I just need a lavalier thing. I can get it, Mayor. Here we go. How about if I just hold it like that?
Send in the police.
There we go. All right, this, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is a resolution for a neighborhood grant for the Lucia Ridge Neighborhood Association to upgrade the landscaping at the Taney Hills Library. Essentially, what they're going to do is take out a bunch of shrubs, take out some gravel that's there and replace it with other kind of landscaping type rocks and things like that. The request is for $4,435. Taney Hills Library will be contributing $500 toward that. This being a resolution, this is a one read kind of thing. We're asking for approval of this.
Are there any questions or comments from members in the audience? Any questions from the board? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please. No, they can't hear you online. But we can hear you.
Well, since Taney Hills Library is not a publicly funded library, this would be really nice to have. I am a library volunteer. I do milk and cookies on Saturdays during the school year.
Thank you for volunteering. Any other questions?
I stole it.
Any questions, comments from the board?
Milk and cookies. I heard milk and cookies.
And I see Marcy out there, and she's been doing an excellent, excellent job. Hearing no questions, let's vote.
Your Honor, that motion carried 6-0. Your Honor, the next item,
Oh, excuse me, Lisa.
sorry.
Before we move on, we have an alderman that is requesting to take a pause. I'd like to take a 6-minute recess. Thank you. going to call this meeting back to order.
Your Honor, the next item is a resolution authorizing staff to send correspondence to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission concerning Empire District Electric proposed gate elevations at Power Site Dam in connection with the Ozark Beach project. The floor is open for a motion adopting this resolution.
We have a motion and a second, a staff report from Keith.
Mayor, members of the board, good evening. This here is a resolution authorizing us to send.
Keith?
Oh, tell you. Is that better?
Much better.
Okay. Don't want to eat it here. Anyway, this is to send a letter back to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission concerning the Empire District Electric proposed gate elevations at Power Site Dam in connection with our Ozark Beach project. I'm going to read a few more, facts here, what happened in the past here. If you remember, a while back, I done a presentation to council on the Obermeyer gates they were going to install and, raise the elevation of them down at Power Site. So this is a follow-up to that. Comments were provided to the Regulatory Commission, FERC, on January the 4th of 22 concerning the proposed impacts raising of the Obermeyer gates at Power Site Dam. The city's comments included a request for additional studies related to the impacts and operating costs on the following: the Compton wastewater plant, the city's drinking water intake, Branson Landing mixed-use development, our Lakeside RV park, induced tributary flooding from the amended application for relicensing of Liberty Utilities Ozarks Beach project. Representatives from the Empire District Electric Company met with us to discuss the concerns mentioned above with the Branson staff. Tests were conducted between both parties to review the effects of the proposed elevations and cause raising of the gates. Upon conduction of the test, Empire has agreed to modify the gate levels through the generation of the gate operation. Empire has asked the city to notify FERC that the levels proposed are satisfactory and that Empire has addressed their concerns raised in the January 4th letter. At this time, we are not requesting any additional information or analysis to be done. I've attached backup information here, a staff report, the letter to the FERC, and staff report Exhibit 2, letter to the city dated March the 4th from Liberty. Staff recommends approval of this so that we could sign the letter and get it sent back off to the Federal Regulatory Commission.
Okay. Chad, would you put up Exhibit 2, and then Keith, would you explain to us the charts and what they're telling us, what the request was initially, and then what your recommendations are? There you go.
Okay. Anyway, if you look at these, the proposed gate operations down at the bottom of table B-3. That's the existing one, Chad.
Yeah, you're looking for the next two.
Yeah, the next, whoops. Which one, Keith? There it is, right there. That one there. Yeah, show those two tables right there. There you go, right there. The first table on top, gate operations proposed conditions. If you'll see the lower one where it says 703.4, basically when it gets that high, that's lapping at the frontage road down at the campground. Our frontage road is about 703.8 on elevation, mean sea level elevation. That's what they proposed first. When we saw those elevations, we went down there, and in conjunction with Table Rock Dam, they kind of done a mock scenario for us. And when they done that, I was talking to Liberty's guys down at Power Site, and to see what that elevation was gonna do to our campground road. Well, we went down there on January, I think it was the 19th or 21st. Freezing cold, it was 19 degrees out that morning, I never will forget. So we were shooting elevations all the way up and down Taneycomo from the intake structure at Metals Treatment Plant, the one there off of Sunset, our Lakeside Drive, and our treatment plant elevation down at our wastewater plant at Compton, and also our campground roads. Well, I had the Liberty guys were out there meeting with us that day, and they could see what impacts it was having to our campground road, which it was up on it. Which if you've been down there and watched the flow rates the last couple of weeks, that Table Rock's been turning out about 21,000 CFS. It's right up on the frontage road, if not up on it a little bit. Just depends on how much rain we've had in our other tributaries, you know. But anyway, they came back and revised their gate elevations to where it hits 702.5, then the gates will go back down. The Obermeyer gates will be let down. Now, I've also got 3 guys here from Liberty Utilities to help explain all this in a better manner than what I've, discussed with you tonight in my previous presentation to you all. So if you all have any questions, or the audience has any questions, feel free to ask.
I don't know if the board has any questions. I had a couple questions. The owners at Lakewood Estates are very concerned. And I know you addressed the Compton plant, the RV park, Branson Landing. What, if any, effects are we looking at for the Lakewood Estates subdivision?
Okay, when I was looking at our contour data and from our GIS, if I remember, the backyards of the roads, including, or not the roads, but the houses that back up to Taneycomo, basically in your area there, is about, your backyard's elevation is approximately 712, 714, give or take a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, this is going to put the elevation to 702. So you can, 10, 12 foot of elevation difference there is all this is going to make in those areas there.
The other question, I think it was raised before, is by elevating the normal water level now of Taneycomo,
Okay.
when we have floods, from a layman's point of view, it looks like at the water level now, Taneycomo can take on so much height and water when we're flooding. If we raise the base when we have those floods, is it going to raise that level? Just a reminder, in our 09 flood, one of our flood, 13, I think it was, or 15, it was 15. The water was just inches within hitting the inside the houses that are along Taneycomo. So by raising it a foot, when we have floods, is that going to raise that extra foot in our floods?
Okay, for example, and I just finished talking to Randy just a few minutes ago, and he's one of them that's here right now with Liberty. And just the other day, like I was talking about, when Table Rock was releasing 21,000 CFS, they had their gates completely down all the time. So whenever it hits this elevation here, and Randy can probably explain it better than I can, the gates are automatically lowered then.
The Obermeyer gates?
Obermeyer gates. Mm-hmm. If you'd like him to come explain it, I have no problem with that at all.
Trust what you say.
Yeah.
Where's Randy at?
Right there.
Hi, Randy.
It's Randy Richardson from Liberty Utilities.
Did he answer the question though? Because
Well, he just said that if the elevation gets to the flood level, those Obermeyer gates are going to automatically drop down to the 702 level?
They would drop down lower than that. Is that correct, Randy? That's correct.
Okay. And Randy, I'm not questioning you personally.
No, that's fine. I want everybody to have a good understanding of this. 'Cause
Is that agreement, is that in writing? Because I know, and we clearly don't have time for this discussion, but it's been explained to me over the years when Taneycomo is flooded, there's some restriction from somewhere down below Bull Shoals where there was lawsuits in the 60s and we can't release so much, or FEMA or somebody got sued. I don't need to go down that road. The only reason I'm bringing it up is if this is in writing is, what I was told before is, well, there's nothing we could do because there's this agreement or court case or something. It says we cannot release more water.
I'm not privy to that at all.
Okay. For those listening, oh, here comes Chief. What Randy just said, and I appreciate that, is you have no knowledge of that agreement. Okay, I just want the listeners to hear.
From an emergency management perspective,
Yes.
the control that you're talking about most likely is the set by United States Congress, the plan from Tibrock Dam. So everything on, Randy's going to help me out if I say this wrong, really not controllable at your dam. Everything for water management is at Tibrock Dam, Beaver Dam, Bull Shoals Dam, which is Corps controlled, this being a private entity dam. So that's going to be our control factor for what happens downstream in Arkansas for the farm fields and the seasonal. So we've got those complete charts on mapping when they release, when the lake level is at a certain height on Tibrock, they release so much. So we watch the inflows coming into Tibrock, into Beaver, and their discharge as well. So that's all Congress controlled. Back to your legal side.
So what you're saying is our hands are in the control of Biden. Just kidding, just kidding. Come back, Ted. Wow, that's two we need to edit out of tonight's meeting. The attorney's over there just shaking his head. Actually, you're the best person to ask these questions to. Ted is in charge of our emergency management within the city. Flood control, clearly under Ted's direction. So Ted, would you provide assurance to the Lakewood Estates homeowners that by signing and agreeing to this agreement, that Lakewood Estates is not going to be at any more risk than it is today?
No, because I haven't reviewed that. So as far as that process, but what Randy has shared through Keith is that those gates, it's overflow anyway, overhead dam, and they lower those to support us, which I think will in turn support the campground and such. So I think the biggest problem or the biggest concern at Lakewood is once we hit a certain height, we hit those drains that flood your streets, the private streets.
Yes.
More so than the homes. So the work that Empire does in conjunction with the Tibrock Dam helps manage that water through flood conditions. So I think we'd be okay. I'm going back to your studies that you've done, but on flood size, it's water management. So it could have been so much worse without Tibrock Dam in place and Beaver Dam in place when we've hit those record floods in odd years, as we're coming up on another odd year, but in 11 and 17 and 15, and that's when it was so bad.
And just for disclosure, I'm removing my mayor cap and I'm the trustee, I'm the president of the trustees of Lakewood Estates. So there's a lot of homeowners out there relying on me to provide them with some comfort.
From what I've heard so far from the discussion here is that I don't think we're going to be at those levels of your street stormwater runoff or the flood levels. So when we're managing, or when the Corps is managing water from the structure, from Tibrock Dam, that's a whole nother day. You've got about 8 to 10 feet of wiggle room in there compared to what Empire is trying to do from their structures. That sounds good. So we should be plenty of clearance for that subdivision. My biggest concern hearing up front was the campground, because of the campground road. But from what I heard from the Empire team tonight is they'll manage that by lowering the gates at those times when Tibrock is hitting that 20,000 plus cubic feet of water per second.
Okay, forgive me for asking this a different way. Our stormwater at Lakewood our stormwater couldn't drain into Taneycomo because Taneycomo's water level was higher than our stormwater. And the water was so high, it was coming in between the houses, flowing in between. If that same event occurred again, what we're talking about with these gates will have no bearing on that kind of an event.
That's correct.
That's what okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood
As
that.
Keith mentioned, you've got that, 10 feet of clearance
Yeah,
at that level. So we're in a major flood control management program where Empire participates by dropping those gates to begin with. So that should give us every day, normal day that we're talking about should not be an issue.
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
I've got a question, if that's okay. I'm confused. You guys know engineering more than me. How is raising the level of the lake not going to make these floods worse? In a layman's terms, that you're saying that they lower the gates, right? But in the 50-year floods, 100-year floods, I don't even believe in those numbers because, like we've said, we've seen them far too often. I'm confused of how a higher lake level won't make those floods 1 foot higher in the instance that they can't lower the gates enough. I mean, we have floods like that. We've had where the completely is down, you know. Just help me understand how that would not make it 1 foot higher. I don't understand.
Try.
Okay.
Well, when you start talking about storm events, like the 100-year storm event, that doesn't mean that you're going to have a 100-year flood every 100 years. 1% of the time, when we get a flood, it will be the 100-year storm event.
I see.
Okay? That makes better sense?
Yes.
Not every 100 years you're going to get a 100-year flood, you know.
Right.
1% of the time, you'll have a 100-year storm.
So in 7 years, we had 3 100-year flood events.
Right.
Which means we won't have another flood event for another 400 years.
I hope you're right.
But Keith, do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, so basically, when the water elevation gets to 702.5, the gates go back down.
Okay.
And the way Randy's explained it to me before, he's coming up here, he can probably do it a lot better than I can. But once it hits that elevation, the gates go back down. I'll let Randy, talk.
Come to the rescue, Randy.
Yes, Randy Richardson. I fully understand your question and your concern, and I've wrestled with that myself some. One piece of information I did pick up from an Army Corps of Engineers gentleman. When they're releasing their normal water flow, normal generation 13,000 CFS, they told me that in a period of 16 hours, all of Lake Taneycomo water is changed out.
Okay.
In that period of 16 hours, basically we would drain all of Lake Taneycomo. So basically, if we're starting at 702.5 and we lower our gates, I don't have an actual number, but I'm guessing less than 12 hours, we would have that water level down to 697. Okay? So if that's assuming no water's coming in. If you were to get an exceptional rainfall event in a very short duration of time, then that 1 foot elevation would make a big difference. Most of our rainfall events, even if the rainfall event lasts for an hour and we get, exaggerate, 10 inches of rain in an hour, by the time the tributaries start sending all that water down to Lake Taneycomo, we've already started lowering the water level. I don't know how long it actually takes for that water to actually make it in to get to a peak in Taneycomo, but we've already started lowering the water level, and just say in 10 hours, we're all the way down to where we would be if we started at the bottom already.
But what we're saying is that there could be a scenario where this could make a flood worse, conceivably, considering how fast the water comes in.
It would definitely have to be conceivable on how fast the water could come in, yes. That is possible. You could also make the argument that we had the gates completely down, Table Rock's releasing 21,000 CFS, we're at this water level right now, another rainfall event happens, and we're right back in the same boat that we're in right now. Fortunately, this time, we've already got the momentum of the water moving and helping us. This last rainfall event, we had the gates operating very well. The water level came up to 702.4 with the rainfall event we had, and then it dissipated very quickly, and then we just maintained the water level from there. So yes, as an engineer, I can't guarantee the sun's going to come up tomorrow, but I really believe it will. I can't guarantee that there won't be a flood event or some kind of rainfall event. This would make it worse. But the vast majority of time, high probability, I don't see this being an issue because the flood events don't happen that fast.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Randy.
Mr. Chowden, adding to your concern, if I'm hearing it correctly, this is a request for daily operations, and the engineers have shot elevations that seem to project daily operations will not affect the neighborhood, Branson Landing, city campground. If we get into heavy rainfall with inflows, we do have river gauges on Turkey Creek in the Hollister area, actually down by the Branson Creek area, and on Rourke Valley, or Rourke Creek up by Rourke Valley Road and Shepherd Hills. So we monitor those along with National Weather Service, and that communication comes back electronically to our partners like Empire. So daily operations is what the request is, and it sounds like the engineers have determined we're safe with this modification. Then we're into flood management with the Corps and all the partners at that point. But to Randy's point, we have a lot of inflow into Taneycomo, so it's always a moving target. Cindy's crew constantly watching for their guests at the campground based on what Table Rock Dam is doing, what the inflows are doing at Taneycomo, and how much rainfall is coming down in what time period. So it's all an equation constantly. But daily operations to this proposal appears to be okay. Does that sound fair? Yep. Okay.
And Ted or Keith, you could probably answer this, but Randy, I think just for clarity also for our community, I believe the request was because Taneycomo has built up with so much silt that Liberty's looking to have increased water flow so they can generate more electricity. That was the thrust behind this. Yes, please.
Yeah, it's a two-part answer to that. Taneycomo, as all lakes do as they get older, they eventually turn into a river again. Through sedimentation, they just build up along the shorelines, and they just keep filling up. There's not much you can do about that. It's just the fact. So we are putting a Band-Aid on by doing this and allowing us to maintain the water level at a higher level than we can right now. So that's a help for the entire lake. Jason tells me that there's a lot of requests to keep this water level up in that 702 area because the people really like it lake-wide. They like that. For every foot of head differential in normal operating ranges, we get about a megawatt from the plant, an extra megawatt. Some days that's $20 an hour, other days it's a little higher than that. Just depends upon what the market is. So it makes us a little bit of money, but it helps the lake out.
So by the city of Branson agreeing to this, did I hear you say that the residents in Branson that use Liberty will get a 10% reduction on their monthly electric bill?
Yeah, something like that.
I didn't hear
I said
that.
something like that.
Oh. Okay. Appreciate you very much. This is the,
I was going to ask, Grant, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say this is the first reading, correct, Lisa?
It's a resolution,
Oh,
so it's a one-time.
So this is just a one-time?
Yeah.
Oh.
When you say modify the, excuse me, when you say modify the gate levels, what exactly, how does that happen? Is that just moving up, or are you having to make something retrofit something, or are you just?
Yes, the crest of the dam is at 697. We have 4-foot tall gates on them right now, so that takes it to 701. We would like to change those gates out to 6-foot tall gates. That would bring us up higher. Now that would actually be higher than what we have right now at that 702.5 maximum. So ultimately, our goal is to not really have water going over the dam and capture as much as we can, but we will have water going over the dam all the time at that 702.5 maximum elevation.
So you're removing and replacing with?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Randy, could any type of other strategy, dredging the lake, anything like that, help with the silt sedimentation as opposed to this fix?
can't say yes or no with regards to that. I know there is a watershed management plan that is being investigated right now, particularly in the Bull Shoals area and a variety of other, it feeds everything in the Taneycomo area. Without that being addressed, we are going to have sedimentation coming in. So if we dredge it, it's going to be back.
I see.
It's going to move from one area to another as it moves around as well. Yes, we can do some better work with the dredging. I will say that from what I understand, and the city of Branson can answer those questions when they've dredged their rock, what they have to do with their rock from their intakes. We would be facing the same thing.
That would be pretty temporary.
It is. It is a temporary solution. Of course, this is also a temporary solution. It benefits both, like I said, us and the lake. The shoreline management plan is much more a long-term solution.
Randy, I really appreciate you coming. Keith, I appreciate any other questions from the board?
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Would these taller gates affect how much water can be released?
No.
No, so you'll
No.
still be able to release the exact same amount of water?
That's correct.
So it won't hinder any drainage?
That's correct.
Okay.
And you'll provide your personal cell phone for anybody would have questions when it starts to rain?
I know some people have my cell phone number, and I have received phone calls and asking whether the gates are down or where they're up, and we are very responsive to, we monitor the weather as well, and when they're calling for major water flood events, we do proactively, thank you, lower the gate levels so that we can start moving some water out.
Well, I can tell you, speaking for the city of Branson, the city of Branson and Liberty Empire have had a great relationship for many, many years. And we truly appreciate being able to work together through things like this.
I appreciate it too, and I really appreciate Keith doing that experiment. Definitely showed that those original requested elevations were way too high.
Yep.
So we definitely needed to modify those. It was an impact to the city of Branson. It was an impact to Liberty Park down there, right at the dam as well. So
Sure.
yeah, it was too high.
Thank you very, very much. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Randy. We're supposed to vote.
We're ready to vote.
I'm all in favor? Yeah, let's vote.
Your Honor, that passed 5-1 with Alderman Howden voting no.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6160, an ordinance amending the adopted 2022 budget for the City of Branson to adjust monies in the Tourism Fund for the Gretna Road repair. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6160.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll get a staff report from Keith.
Mayor, members of the board, Jan and I are going to tag team on this one here. Jan will be doing the budget amendment portion of it, and then I'll explain the contract for the contractor.
Need your name and address, please.
I'll take care of this myself. There you go. I learn eventually. Mayor, members of the board, one of Kendall's 12-inch water lines broke, and now Keith has to clean up.
Where's Ken? Oh, there he is.
So what we've got here is on Gretna Road, we've got somewhere around 200 feet of roadway that needs to be repaired. And as such, we need to make a budget amendment out of the tourism fund to be able to fix those repairs. that budget amendment, we're asking for $487,903. That's a big chunk of money. That's coming out of the tourism fund. Currently, there's about $16.6 million in that fund, so that should reduce it to about $16.1 million and change, somewhere in that neighborhood. So the staff recommends approval, and we'll answer any questions.
Well, that was short and sweet. That knocks the heck out of a $500,000 bill.
480.
Any questions, comments?
Your
Throwing
Honor,
up from the audience?
Your Honor, if you want, Keith can go on and explain the next item
I see.
because it's the contract that needs, if you would like
Okay,
it now,
yeah, let's do
and
it
and then you
together.
can hear it together so
Thank
you
you.
know.
Thank you very much. Okay, Jan.
Okay. And as everyone knows, what Jan just described here, Kendall had one of his water lines to break on us, and out on Gretna Road in Wildwood. That occurred on the weekend of April the 29th of 22. This water main break compromised Gretna Road and needs repaired as quickly as possible for the safety of our citizens and visitors. Staff performed a thorough investigation of the damages to Gretna Road and Wildwood Drive intersections. Through the investigation, repairs needed to include road repair and replacement, sidewalk, curb and gutter repairs. City crews have made temporary repairs to this intersection and road to accommodate the traffic and continue to monitor the road on a daily basis. We're out there regrading this road every morning just about. Road continues to have settlement issues, and crews are continuing to perform temporary repairs. Staff contacted Blevins Asphalt Construction Company to investigate our damages and provide an estimate for the road repairs. Blevins is the city's current mill and overlay contractor, which has met all the parameters of existing contract, and the city has their insurance on file. Blevins provided an itemized bid in the amount of $487,902.32, which includes concrete curb repair, sidewalk, ADA ramps, base rock asphalt, milling the existing road, and striping. City code allows for emergency purchase to be done without following through competitive bid provisions. Due to the cost associated with this repair and continued temporary repairs, with the advice of legal counsel, staff had prepared a construction contract between the City of Branson and Blevins Asphalt Company, Inc., not to exceed amount of $487,902.32. This contract will present as the next item on the agenda, which this is basically one and the same staff report. The budget amendment is necessary to account for these expenses in the transportation and tourism funds at the amount of $487,902.32. Staff recommends approval of this. Be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, so anybody in the audience for items 14 and 15, any questions or comments?
And we are asking for a double read for this tonight.
I understand. Any questions from the board?
I'll go ahead.
I just wanted to point out real quickly to the citizens that a certain percentage of our tourism fund is set aside for infrastructure. If you're curious why it comes out of tourism, I just
Correct.
wanted to point that out.
Correct.
75% of all tourism tax goes to infrastructure. That's right, and 25% to marketing. Thank you, Marshall.
Well, first I want to say that was a very good, quick job that your crew did. And I believe that was on a weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I mean,
there
they turned that around like,
Saturday and
Yeah,
Sunday.
Kendall was out there working even.
yeah, I saw him, yeah.
I didn't.
But that was a great job. And I've had many, many citizens reach out, what is going on? When are they going to get this fixed? Blah, blah, blah. Man, is that price tag common, or is it because we're in a time crunch, or the cost of goods?
Well, probably a little bit of everything, all the above, The asphalt's 11 inches thick out there because it's one of our major arterials, and that's why it's so thick. So we've got to completely take all the asphalt out for about 600 feet of roadway, take the curb and gutter out, take the sidewalks out, repair them because they're just humped up and down every which way, and the curbing is also. And so that's a big cost right there. You're talking, I don't remember how many tons of asphalt that is when you go putting it back in 2-inch lifts and then rolling it and compacting it, come back in, put tack coat down, put another lift in. And the time you get up to 11, 12 inches thick of asphalt, there's a pretty good chunk of change in a lot of time.
And you say the contract is with Blevins, I mean, so that's who does our stuff, you don't bid this out or nothing to?
We bid our mill and overlay out every year, which
Okay.
goes to the best responsible bidder.
I got you.
And Blevins just happened to be our current contractor this year, who just finished our mill and overlay and done a great job. You know,
Yeah.
They've done an excellent job on our project. And, but what we've had to do is, we took our surveyor out and, which is our in-house surveying. We topoed the entire alignment where we're gonna remove and replace, so we'll have elevations to put the new curb and gutter and sidewalk back into grade, to the proper grade they're supposed to be.
What will this do to traffic flow
We're gonna
during
shut
this?
the road down. We'll shut
That
it
whole
down.
intersection will just be
Be
nothing?
just like it was that day when we had the water line blow out. We'll shut it down at Row Arc all the way to Wildwood.
And how long will that be
They're
out of
hoping to
commission?
get in here, if we can get their bonds and insurance, certificates and everything by the end of this week, they hope to start by the end of the following week. Time we get it through contract management here, and we're basically pushing it through, walking it through, whatever we need to do to make it happen.
But how long will that be
Probably,
out of commission, you know, the road's
construction-wise?
closed? Yeah.
Well, when they put the curb and gutter back in, tear it out, put it back in, you know, it's green concrete. It needs to set at least 7 days to get 75% of the concrete strength. So once that sets, you know, that long, then we'll check on our 7 days concrete breaks, because we'll take cylinders and break the cylinders at 7 days to see if it has the strength. Most of the time, it'll have at least 75% of the strength. And, because we don't want to get that big roller right next to that green concrete and break it. You know, that's the last thing we want to do. So it'll probably set for 7 days at least when they put it back in, before we can come back in and, you know, put the asphalt back in.
So I guess the question is, start to finish, approximately?
3 weeks.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Because people's going to ask, how long is the road going to be
Oh,
shut
yeah,
down?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Hey,
And
Keith?
We was wanting to get it done before Memorial Day. Well, we all know that's not going to happen now, so.
Right.
One quick follow-up,
sir.
going to what Clay said. Do you ever go back, so you said we do our mill and overlay contract beginning. You ever go back and retroactively, as part of the RFQ process or RFP process, say, how much would you have charged us for this project? Is that ever part of the, so for instance, say this Gretna Road, and it costs us $500,000, roughly. So then the next time we go out for RFQ for the mill and overlay people for that year, would we ever say, how much would you have charged us for the Gretna Road project?
No.
No?
I don't.
Be interesting if we did, right?
I don't think that's a bad question.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're trying to make it happen as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
So, and you know, I was looking at that presentation a while ago on how the people were rating the roads around here, and you know, you hit the nail on the head. We don't want to go in and pave a lot of these, especially the roads up behind City Hall here, and then behind the Bob Evans area and the older subdivisions where we need to, and Parnell and, you know, Iserman down there, the older areas, because they need water lines replaced. And if we would spend money on mill and overlay those now to make the roads a nice, smooth area, we'd be tarred and feathered, you know. That wouldn't be good stewards of the citizens' money or anything else like that. So we've got a big backlog, there's no doubt about it. And some of our major arterials is where we're really hitting heavy on right now. And to get them, you know, paved and back up to, you know, where they're supposed to be. We had a couple years there where our mill and overlay program was put on hold just due to funding. You know, we took everything out of our tourism, transportation money, and we didn't pave anything for, I believe it was 2 years, wasn't it? 4 years? Yeah, and, you know, that took a big hit on our roads and everything.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of getting money prioritized and funded for these roads.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments?
Your Honor, just so you know, we will put out media releases on this. Keith's really good about doing that, and we'll get them out so we can keep the public informed on when the roads are going to be shut down and any impact that will have, because that is a major intersection.
Yeah, and when we do that, let's get that in, the press also? Jason, you listening? Okay. Just making sure.
Melody sends that out to everyone.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thanks for that heads up, Lisa. Okay, time to vote.
Your Honor, that carried 6-0.
So now you're asking,
For a double read,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
so Lisa, we need to take a vote to have a second read. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Need a
Is there
motion?
language?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Clay.
Your Honor, I move to read Bill number 6160 for a final reading due to time. Right?
Correct.
Get her done.
Get her done.
Get her done.
Let's make sure we get the correct spelling on get her done.
Oh, wait.
There's an apostrophe.
GITRDUN.
So we have a motion and a second for the second read. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, let's vote. Chad, oh, you good? She's got it.
That motion carried 6-0.
So Madam
Your-
Clerk?
Your Honor, this is the final reading of Bill Number 6160, an ordinance amending the adopted 2022 budget for the City of Branson to adjust monies in the Tourism Fund for the Gretna Road repair. The floor is open for a motion to approve the final reading of Bill Number 6160.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or comments from the audience about the second read? Hearing none. Board, any questions, comments? Go ahead.
One last thing quickly. I think Keith might have said this, but I think it's important to point this out as well, is that this could have just gone straight to our city administrator for approval. We did bring it to the board, just enhanced transparency. So I just wanted to bring that out once again. So.
Thank you for saying that. Okay, let's vote.
That motion carries 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6161, an ordinance approving the contract with Blevins Asphalt Construction Company Incorporated for Gretna Road repair and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6161.
We have a motion and a second. Is anybody in the audience wishing to speak to this matter? Any aldermen? Hearing none, let's vote.
That motion carried 6-0. And we need a,
Yep. Your Honor, I move to read Bill number 6161 for a final reading due to time and getting this going, I guess.
We have a motion and a second. Anybody in the audience?
hold on.
I didn't even push a button.
Here we go. We now have a motion second from two different aldermen.
That was me. I will take that.
That's fine.
When somebody reads a motion,
Yeah.
I'm trying to catch it before anybody else because then
It's okay, we've got friends to keep us in track. So we have a motion and a second. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak to this matter? Any aldermen? Please vote.
Motion carried 6-0. Your Honor, this is the final reading now that we approved to go on to. Bill number 6161, an ordinance approving the contract with Blevins Asphalt Construction Company Incorporated for Gretna Road repair and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the final reading of Bill number 6161.
We have a motion and a second. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this matter? Any board members? Hearing none, let's vote.
That motion carries 6-0. And we all thank you. Move that on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next item is appointments. This appointment process is in accordance with the board and committee appointments procedure for Category 1 appointments made by the mayor with approval of the Board of Aldermen. Mayor, please announce your appointment to be voted on.
My appointment for the Advisory Park Board to fill the unexpired term of Clark Harris until June 2024 is Jody Mahardis.
The floor is open for a motion to approve the appointment for Category 1 as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote.
That motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
And Jody, thank you for volunteering your time.
He'll be a good one. Yeah. Jody will be a good one on that
Yeah,
board.
yes.
Your Honor, the next item is disbursements. The floor is open for a motion to acknowledge the receipt of disbursements from April 21st, 2022 through May 13th, 2022. We have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second.
Yep.
Any discussion? Go ahead, Marshall.
Mr. Mayor, did you ever get any follow-up on what you mentioned last time about this, about having a little bit more oversight of this as a board?
Yes. In
Okay.
fact, I'm waiting to get some guidance on, thank you for bringing that up. I did mention it at the last board meeting, and it will be addressed before we have these reports approved again.
If I may point out, Director Fisher worked on helping, doing that, and if you look at the staff report, there's additional information in the staff report trying to address what you were asking.
We'll continue with these.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jan, for helping. Okay, time to vote.
That motion carries 6-0.
We have moved on to the reports section of our meeting. Alderman Fenton, any words of wisdom you'd like to share?
I just think, we've heard about this Country Bluff issue for, ever since I've been on the board, and really going back even before that. And, Mayor, I think you did a good job of trying to address just a bad situation, just overall bad situation. And 2 weeks ago, my concern was the decision that was made, I felt like hurt Country Bluff in a lot of ways, and I think it set back some progress that had been made to right some wrongs. And really, as many of us have heard, and I've heard this, it's not my ward, but a lot of people have said, guys, the flooding's been an issue for a number of years. This isn't a new issue. This has been an issue for a number of years. And my concern was 2 weeks ago we undid that progress and the headways we were making on this issue. And so I would just ask anybody that lives in Country Bluff, if this affects you, if you are impacted by the flooding that does occur there, show up and speak and show up and address this, because I just feel like we made a decision based on one person's opinion and not the larger community as a whole. And that concerns me, and I hope that, we can come back to the table on this, but I just don't like the idea that a decision was made based on one person who was the loudest voice and not others that live in that area that maybe would have felt differently and would have appreciated addressing the sewer issue and the water runoff issue. So that's my only comments.
Thank you. Alderman Denham.
Yes, we've been busy here at the city, and there's just a lot of events going on. I attended the community meeting for Fire Station number 4 that was held at Point Royale Clubhouse. Thank you, Chief Martin. Presentations were made by the design team, and Chief Martin and Dick Gass gave a summary of what's taken place to date. So I'm really looking forward to the progression of this new fire station. On the 13th, the city had an orientation. Presentations were made by staff, by various city departments, and I really feel that the informal setting, the thorough presentations, and the open communication was extremely educational. Thank you for everyone that participated in this, and I'm hoping that we can have more of these, maybe on a regular basis. I really learned a lot from each of the leaders in the departments. And then also, I sat in on the CompStat Police Department meeting. Chief Matthews let me know the date, and it was very informative. His staff and commanders for each of the districts and the different areas of the city provide updates and of their coverage areas, and I learned a lot from those meetings as well. We have an amazing police department. Thank you for your leadership, Chief Matthews. On the 18th, I had the opportunity to participate in the city's annual cookout for Public Works Week. Thank you very much for including us. A huge thank you to all the public work employees for all the work that you do. Rain, shine, snow, sleet, everything in between. You're out there 24/7, 365 days, and you are greatly appreciated. And then lastly, today I attended the ribbon cutting for the first look event over at Elevate Branson, and there was a pretty good turnout. We got a tour of the area where all the houses are going to go and where they're going to relocate their thrift store, and they're doing a great job, and I just want to congratulate them for all the work they do, and working with our community to help out is greatly appreciated. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Alderman Cooper.
Well, just while you're bragging on the chief, I had a text message from a concerned citizen about a homeless camp down on Roark Creek a couple of days ago, and a pretty extensive looking, it was like a 3-bedroom. They had a microwave, extension cords, the whole bit down there. But I passed that on to Chief Matthews, and I wasn't aware that he has a sergeant that it's assigned to the homeless outreach, right? Is that, I didn't even, so this officer basically just, that's the duty, addressing homeless camps and issues like that? Yeah, that's awesome. Anyhow, thank you for getting on that, and appreciate that.
Thank you. Alderman Chuck.
I got nothing today.
Alderman Howden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You have nothing today? Alderman Ralph.
Ask my wife. Yeah. So as you guys know, I've been thinking a lot about family recently. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for honoring Dylan Pratt. His dad, who was sitting right here with the amazing hairdo, was my grandpa's band leader for 40 years, So I've known Dylan ever since he was a young man, and he, like him, I'm super passionate about what they do at Historic Owen. And so, I think about family, and I think about how Branson's a family. So some interesting things were brought up, kind of post-mortem of what happened a few weeks ago in the public comment section. In some ways, sometimes you don't feel like you can even prove, even if you act, that you can even prove what the truth is. And I think that what we proved 2 weeks ago is that we are all independent voices. None of us are, yes men, as we've been called before, and things like that. There was a lot of discussion about, and it's even been said tonight about, moving forward. I didn't base my vote on one person. I based my vote on years of following that issue. I think that there's absolutely a time to move forward, and that's, I think, now. I thought that needed to happen last week for a myriad of reasons that I won't relitigate, but I think it is time to move forward at this point. But I want to say I stand by, and I'm proud of the vote that I took 2 weeks ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Dr. Ralph.
Everybody gets their last name except for me. So I guess May is, the virtue of May is excellence. And, you know, I think about that word excellence, and, you know, it's not perfection. Perfection is an unattainable trait, but excellence is something that we can all exercise every single day. It's doing the best that we can that day, like giving it our all, like showing up and executing on the plan and really having input into what goes on. And you know, it's incumbent on us as the board to practice excellence when we're up here making decisions for the residents of Branson and for all the people that work in Branson. And I think that is happening. I think it's happening not just at this board level, but also over the last couple of weeks, meeting more of the department heads and interacting more with them. You know, there's definitely a passion for this government, and it's very obvious to me that every day that you show up, even on Mondays, which I'm kind of thinking of changing Mondays to Tuesday A and Tuesday to Tuesday B, just to kind of eliminate Monday altogether. But, you know, I really want to applaud you all for showing up and doing what you do. And even in the board, you know, Marshall's right. I think we are 6 individual people that were elected to, you know, kind of look at issues and not just look at the problem, but really source a solution. And we are exercising that every single day. And we're taking that excellence approach. We're not looking for perfection because, you know, as the mayor said when this board was elected, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to admit to mistakes that we made, and we're going to own up to them, and we're going to move forward. And, you know, I think that the issue when it comes to Country Bluff, you know, that's been talked about a lot. I respect and care about every single resident in that community. I've spent a lot of time with them. As has Ruth, you know, we've done that because it's been that issue. But you know, this is now a time where we have to, you know, and it's not about burying a hatchet, but it's about really moving forward and really, you know, what's best for the community as a whole. And you know, I think this board is the board that's going to do that. You know, we're gonna hear other opinions, and you know, I value those opinions. Some I'll listen to, Cody. I appreciate that. And some are just opinions that won't go away simply because they just won't go away. And that's okay. So in keeping with May for the next week and a half, excellence is, I think, a virtue that we can all strive to do. And knowing that it's not perfection, and some days we're going to be 100%, some days we might just be 90%, and guess what? If that's the best you got, I'll take it, because you guys are pretty doggone on point, and I really appreciate all that you guys do. So thank you.
Thank you. Acting City Administrator Westfall.
Thank you. Just a couple of reminders about our website and what's available out there. The ETC reports, the surveys will be available tomorrow out there, but all the past ones are out there also. So sometimes I think we forget that we have a lot of information available out there. Also, we have a feature on our website, report an issue. So we've talked about some of those things. So we have mechanisms in place, and it's just kind of keeping it out there that we have the availability and places to go find information. So I want to put that out there. And finally, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day weekend, a safe weekend, and we'll happy to welcome our visitors this weekend.
Thank you. I need to start off with the Public Works Week and Utilities. We, the board, enjoyed serving them at a barbecue, and I'll tell you, I am just more and more impressed with, Kendall, what you and Keith do in your departments. The crew you have You could tell their heart is there. They're just, they just put their heart and soul in what they're doing. They really care about the city, and that's really good to see. Hard to replace. We will be having a study session, probably more than one, addressing our homeless issues, addressing our panhandling issues. We have quite a few big rocks we want to be proactive on, and you'll see that coming up as we can schedule it in. Other than that, the directors, the employees that I talk to at the city every day, I'm just more and more proud of the organization that we have and the skill set we have to work with here. So with that, I will say adieu, and we need a motion to go in executive.
Yes, please.
Somebody gonna read that?
I guess I'm the official reader, which is kind of mind-blowing to think about. I move to go into closed executive session pursuant to 610.021.2 RSMO for real estate.
We have a motion.
Do I have a second?
Somebody second it. Just get on your mic and say you second.
I second.
I got it.
We have a
Thank you.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Oh, sorry. Everybody vote.
That motion carried 6-0.
Next item on the agenda is to adjourn. The floor is open for a motion to adjourn a meeting.
I'll take a motion. If somebody wants just voice motion.
Just a
Thank you.
voice motion.
So
Somebody.
move.
Second.
Alderman Denham seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Thank you very much.